Happy New Year, YouTubers. It's me, Raj. I hope everybody is doing well, and I'm still here, still active mostly on Twitter these days. Uh, I don't really make much hay out of politics lately, just because I'm tremendously cynical about the American political system, and there's so much tragedy and so little solution. I mean, just yesterday there was a mass shooting in an area uh, that I know pretty well. And today I observed that some people on Twitter were arguing about it. Not what you would expect. Not about, you know, gun rights versus regulation. Rather, some people were arguing and being angry that Monterey Park was described as a predominantly Asian area. And I'm not sure that's a discussion that is really that important. Um, because I've seen a lot of commentary lately about things that really don't matter, and you know, my significant other and I were talking about this. The N word has been verboten for so long in American discourse, but in the last 40 years, segregation has actually gotten worse than when it was in the 1960s. So it's it's kind of insane, like this whole regime of political correctness, of policing what people can say. I'm all about being mindful and being polite to people, especially downtrodden people, as somebody on the left. I just think that there's a lot of people on the left who kind of use that, you know, as something to make themselves feel like they're warriors when in fact they do nothing. No matter how long we haven't been able to be outwardly discriminatory as a society, we're still discriminatory on black people. We don't pay women as much as we pay men, and we're not going to do anything about all the guys out there with guns, and it's mostly men, who need health care. They need mental health care. And having a fight over whether we call Monterey Park uh, a predominantly Asian neighborhood doesn't have anything to do with that. You know what I mean? So that's some of my thoughts on that. It's just kind of insane that people want to have that discussion, and we should be trying to have a discussion that doesn't involve people getting offended every 5 minutes, so we can't face the reality. We need to face realities. That's what this channel is really all about. That's why I'm critical of the left insofar as there is one in the United States, because mostly I don't believe that there is much of a left. I don't believe in the concept of left unity. I think it's perfectly healthy to be at each other's throats. I just think that discussion should be primarily about class politics and about solutions, and not about who we can burn or who we can consider to be um, worthy of cancellation. Now, some people should be canceled because they're, you know, shall we say, beyond the pale. But most of those individuals are beyond the pale for multiple reasons. It's not because they used one word that they shouldn't have, or in this case, because they called Monterey Park a predominantly Asian neighborhood, or whatever the hell that means. I mean, I've been to Monterey Park many, many times. It was, maybe not so much now, but it was the Asian suburbs. So when Mexicans moved in to LA and they were in the urban areas, they'd be in downtown. Maybe a little later, when the Jews moved out, they went to East LA. And then when they got a little bit of money and a little bit of scratch, they moved out of the downtown area and went south on the 5 to places like Pico Rivera and Whittier. And Asians did not have so much flexibility, but there was an area of town that they could have gone to, and that's Monterey Park, which borders Montebello, which is another town which is also Mexican American. And so for them, for Mexicans from downtown or East LA, they would go to Pico Rivera and Whittier and Montebello. And Asians that were in Chinatown that had success and could break into the middle class would go to Monterey Park and maybe later, a little later, Alhambra. And that's the geography of the region. But, you know, having a fight over that is kind of ridiculous, and it's not just that. It's like on TikTok, I heard about these people arguing about how a white woman, an influencer, not that I follow this stuff, but there was an influencer who mispronounced the Mexican soap, and it created a huge hullabaloo with people criticizing her, probably for, I don't know, cultural disrespect, lack of research, and stuff like that. And what is it? Cultural appropriation. And I don't think that stuff is important at all. I don't care if a white woman steals an African hairdo. I know that it annoys black women, but you know what annoys me? Really, the idea that there are huge amounts of black people that are voting for the Democratic Party, and their big plan is basically vote for the Democrats and then try to get into a white adjacent neighborhood, try to break into the middle class, try to get as close as possible to white people because that's where the clean water is and that's where the good schools are. While the other neighborhoods that are predominantly black, good luck. I can tell you from experience here in Southern California, there are whole neighborhoods that have people of color that are environmentally degraded. I mean, there's lead poisoning in these neighborhoods. There's massive noise pollution. The police treat them awfully. I mean, it's insane. And being culturally sensitive, whatever, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's an absurdity. It's a lawn sign. It's lawn sign politics is what it is. So I'm critical of these people on the left because I don't see any movement whatsoever. I mean, the left, basically what the left's doing right now is spinning its wheels, pointing at each other and cursing at each other, which is, I guess, fine. But there's no realization that what has to happen is worker unity, not left unity. I'm not going to be united with people who are basically hipster college professors who want to use these terms that nobody else, like Latinx. I consider myself a Latino. I can understand somebody trying to come up with a neutral phrase in the middle for that, like Latine or something. Latinx is just really weird, and it's not the biggest issue of our time. Okay, that's not the problem. Problem is Mexicans are hounded by a fascist police state. Mexicans don't have access to healthcare. Mexicans work extremely long hours for bad pay. They are subject to a hideous system here, not just of wages, but of employment law that doesn't really meet their needs. I mean, I could go on and on. That stuff is what matters, not calling them Latinx or Latino or Latine. That stuff is so low on the totem pole. But it seems like some people just want to feel good about themselves and berate others, and I don't like that at all. I think that's really pathetic. I'm deeply sorry about the people that have lost their lives in Monterey Park, and I think what we need to be talking about is real solutions, not expressing anger at white people that use the wrong language that you don't like. That's not the problem. The LA Times can write articles in an extremely culturally sensitive way. That doesn't mean the LA Times cares about Asians or Latinos or black people or anybody. That doesn't mean that. It means nothing at all. It means nothing. And you're going to get nothing because you're demanding nothing. That's the reality. Until the entire working class gets together and demands change, you're not going to get any change. So the stuff that these people are talking about on Twitter and on TikTok is totally useless in my view. And anyway, that's just how I feel about it. And I'm gonna do another video soon on I mean, you already have part of my theory of change. If I don't want to call it that, I'm not Zizek here, but there's ways to get change, and then there's ways to ruin our society, and we're sort of heading into a very dangerous area because the left is basically waiting for a signal from the hierarchy uh, that they will accept change. It's kind of like, why did we get gay marriage? We got gay marriage in this country because a group of conservatives and a group of liberals basically agreed that gay marriage was acceptable because there were a lot of rich people who are gay or billionaires with gay children. And because Barack Obama wanted his gay donors and his bundlers to give him more money because he was missing out on Wall Street cash, because Wall Street decided not to give him that much money for his reelection. He gave some speech in which he called them fat cats. Wall Street called them fat cats, and that cut uh, into his fundraising. And so he decided that gay marriage was going to be allowed. And because the signals came up, down from elites, all of a sudden gay marriage was acceptable. But before that, gay marriage was not acceptable. In California, we had a whole referendum on gay marriage, and gay people lost. Okay, and it's not because they're not, people here, because this is a conservative state or whatever. It's a moderate state. We pretend it's progressive, but it's not. It's because people didn't have signals from elites. If your elites tell you that deficit spending is causing inflation, you're going to believe it. If the elites tell you that drone bombing is necessary in the war on terror, you're going to believe it. Doesn't matter what the last guy said, right? Democrats were opposed to drone bombing under George W. Bush. Barack Obama gets elected, suddenly they're for it, right? Because basically people here just follow whatever their leadership tells them. And using politically correct language or something, it doesn't cover up for that. And allowing rich gay people to get married, a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm for gay marriage, but it happened because elites decided it was going to happen. And that's basically what the left is waiting for. We're sort of sitting around with our thumbs up our butts, thinking about what elites are going to allow or not allow. That's the truth of the matter, and that's what this channel is about. Because that's where we're sort of at the mercy, whether you're Sam Cedar or Cenk Uygur or anybody, Ryan Graham or anybody connected to the Democratic Party or capitalism. You're just sort of sitting around wondering what are they going to allow. I mean, even the Tea Party, which is right wing, but very right wing, they're not going to be able to do anything if the neoliberal regime that runs things, if they don't want that to happen. And deficit cutting, for example, is something that rich people don't necessarily want to a large degree. In other words, they want to keep the gravy train running, right? The government's spending a lot of money on the military, and they're not going to cut that, for example. So anyway, that's how this country is run. And that's what I wanted to talk about here. And just to let you know that these discussions online about language and, and being culturally sensitive, I think it's important to be polite and loving to one another when possible. But a lot of this stuff a lot of these things that are identified as goals for people who are supposedly on the left, they're not going anywhere. I mean, none of this stuff is important. It just isn't. And we need to be real. We need to be real. Anyway, that's today's, man. I'm going to expand on some of that in the next video. Anyway, tell me what you think. Give me a like, give me a comment. Thank you.